Few topics are more concern to Americans than brain health. With conditions like ADHD, autism, depression, concussions, dementia, and Alzheimer's, all ages are affected. The incidence of these conditions is at staggering levels with staggering costs and unbelievable hardships on families. The brain is an organ, and as such, our lifestyle choices affect it. Exercise, drugs, nutrition, toxicity, adjustments, all influence our brain health. Did you know there are powerful natural ways to help your brain function better? Are you building a healthy brain or creating future problems with your lifestyle? If you think there's room for improvement, join Stacie, Hanson, and myself as we cover how to make a good brain great. For Maximize Living, I'm Dr. Patrick Andersen. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
And welcome back to Maximize Living with Dr. Patrick Andersen. We're talking about brain health today. Now, when we think about chiropractors, we generally think about spine health. But are you able to help the brain as well?
Really, some of the latest thinking now on healthcare is that, and nervous system, is that chiropractors are not only about the spine and pain, but we're about brain stimulation. In fact, 90% of the brain stimulation comes from spinal movement. And 90% of the brain's energy output is to hold your posture upright. And that's from Dr. Roger Sperry, who won the Nobel Prize in brain research for that discovery. You know, the brain's quite fascinating. It's only 3 pounds. It's about 2% of our body mass, but yet it consumes 20% of the oxygen and 20% of the calories. And by the way, the easiest way it's 80% water. So the easiest way to hurt the brain is don't drink enough water.
Unfortunately, that's an easy thing to correct. You've just got to get in the habit and remember to do it. It's free.
Yeah, absolutely. And next we're going to show a video which I think you'll find absolutely fascinating. It's a motion MRI of spinal fluid flow before and after an adjustment. If you had questions about chiropractic, I think this will answer a lot of them for you.
Notice the size of the foramen magnum. Notice the ventricular action. Notice the disc herniation. So notice the cord descending down here over C5, C6. Notice the bulges here and the fluid trying to descend down. This is a stenosis occurring here.
And you'll notice that it's much less bright white than the post. When you look at the post in a second, you'll be able to see that it'll be much brighter and much more is descending down.
And you could see here the focusing of the ventricles. It's almost like a milking type effect. And you notice the change in signal. Now, one of the most amazing things about our research was that even prior to getting to the stage of the flow studies, we were able to show changes of signal intensity. And the increased white that you see is a change in signal intensity. Remember, nothing's changed here except the patient being adjusted, therefore changing the signal intensity interpreted by the MRI magnet.
Now, this is the same patient on the post adjustment. Look how much brighter it gets. It bounds at you. 1, surges. 2. If you look down the cord,
3.
It's surging down the cord. Her CSF was going barely. Obviously, she was alive. But now she's alive.
More importantly, you're seeing here cerebral cortex activity where before it was stagnant. And when you have this image, isn't this the image we get and feel after we get a good adjustment? We notice those changes. We feel almost as if this picture is telling us how we feel after we get adjusted. Notice the pulsation. The size of this foramen magnum has opened up tremendously. The disc herniations. And you can see the pulsation descending down here to C6 and C5 area where it wasn't before.
That's fascinating. I mean, you can just literally see the difference. So we've got this beautiful image of the brain here. Can you describe some of the different areas? We've got them color-coded here.
Yes, the frontal lobe is this red portion here, and that's where we do our reasoning and judgment and problem solving. It's 35% of the brain mass is the frontal lobe. In animals, it's only like 5%. This really makes us quite more human.
Right.
But what's interesting is it doesn't really fully develop till about age 23. So if your teenager does something and you ask them why they did it and they didn't quite understand why, they don't know why. The reasoning isn't fully developed in that stage, quite honestly. And so that's a big issue. Some of the other...
And the scary thing is I was going to say these people are driving, so
Yeah.
watch out there.
Exactly. Some of the other areas, the temporal lobe is our reading, language, and speech. Parietal lobe up here is touch, temperature, pain. And then in the back here, the occipital lobe, that's our visual centers. And right here, this is called the little brain. It's called the cerebellum, and that's what runs a lot of the midbrain, and it's for our posture, our balance, our coordination, our sports skills, is developing that cerebellum.
And it's fascinating too. There's so much more to learn. We're going to have more on brain health right after this. And welcome back to Maximize Living with Dr. Patrick Andersen. We're talking about brain health today. What are some of the brain diseases that are out there?
Yeah, they're scary, and we've heard a lot about different ones. Alzheimer's, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, Lou Gehrig's disease, dementia, autism, post-traumatic stress disorder, OCD, anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, phobias, ADHD, bipolar, anorexic conditions. It covers a lot of people.
Yeah, unfortunately it does, and you hear about those a lot. What are some of the risk factors for people that are getting some of these?
Well, there's things you can do if for example, if you do get a stroke, you're 10 times more likely to get one of these brain diseases. So do stroke prevention things. A family with Alzheimer's disease, you're 3.5 times more likely to get it yourself. So that doesn't mean you're absolutely going to get it, but if you want to do things to prevent that, live that lifestyle now so you don't express those genes. Diabetes, if you're diabetic, you're 3 times more likely to have one of those brain diseases. And the ones that are twice as likely are high cholesterol, high blood pressure, if you smoke. And this is interesting, if you have less than a high school education. So it's good to keep learning. That's a twice factor for brain disease. And then a job not requiring new learning. Those are big deals.
So it sounds like it's in some ways genetic, but there are things that you can actively do, like continuing to learn, taking some steps towards health.
Absolutely.
Now you work on maximized mind as part of what you do. What are some of the ways that you tell people that they can then improve their brain health with that?
Maximize Mind is one of our 5 essentials, and so the courses on that are on stress management, brain health like today, goal setting, positive mental management, positive self-talk. We also talk about guarding your mind share, discovering your big why. All those things help your brain potential. For example, a mind on a goal is a whole different chemistry than a person that doesn't have goals.
Well, see, it's easy to change your chemistry just by taking that positive outlook, trying to set some goals.
Absolutely.
I mean, you have more control than you think, which is wonderful news. What about diets? That's something that people can choose.
Yes, by eating a better diet, you keep your brain healthy. Keep in mind that the brain is an organ, so it's affected by what you eat hugely. So we want to be on an anti-inflammatory diet. And that means keeping sugar down. Sugar is inflammatory to the body, not only to your brain, but to your joints as well. Reduce flour. Bread products tend to be inflammatory. Watch the refined oils. Don't eat a lot of the oils. The really only good ones are olive oil, coconut oil, grapeseed oil, avocado oil. Those really are the best ones.
And I'm noticing a lot of fruits mentioned in there too, which is
And
good.
then obese meats over 20% body fat. Those are all harmful to the brain. Now, fat is actually good for you. I really believe the low-fat diet craze has failed, but you want to watch overdoing it on fat.
So what are some good brain healthy foods that you can eat?
Again, fruits and berries. In fact, we call blueberries brain berries. They are so healthy for you. It's one of those foods that you just say, boy, if you can have a cup a day, you're doing great. Just like avocados. If you can have an avocado a day, you're doing great. Those are so healthy fats for the brain.
And delicious too, and it's easy just to maybe throw some blueberries on your cereal in the morning and just get it in right away.
We've also got green tea, ginger, and turmeric, and we've heard of those things.
Yeah.
And have a couple cups of green tea a day is very healthy, very anti-inflammatory.
What about supplements?
Yeah, the general supplements, the three that we recommend to people really are vitamin D first and foremost. It is such a deficiency. And then omega-3 fish oils, another huge deficiency, and probiotics. Most Americans do not have a healthy gut. Their bacterial flora balance is quite bad. And so those three are really essential. And then we would add one called Daily Detox, which helps to detox your system and your brain, and then a multiple. So that's 5, and I kind of limited that for most people. But when we go into specific situations, there's other supplements that are known to be helpful for the brain. And those are B-complex, magnesium, CoQ10, very helpful. Alpha-lipoic acid is a long one, but it's really helpful for people who maybe had a little too much alcohol or have some toxicity, heavy metal toxicity. Alpha-lipoic acid is something that's very helpful. And then acetylcarnitine is often used for people with Alzheimer's to help with memory. So there's a lot of different things nutritionally that may be helpful. When you combine that with all the things we offer here, you have a good chance at helping your brain.
And it's good to know that there's a lot that you can do, you can choose to do to keep your brain healthy. We have more on brain health right after this. Welcome back to Maximize Living with Dr. Patrick Andersen. We're talking about brain health today. What about toxins? How can that affect your brain?
Well, they can store in your brain. Number one, mercury. We're exposed to that in a number of different ways, and that's an important one to keep down because it has an affinity for the brain. It passes the blood-brain barrier, and it breaks down the brain. Mercury poisoning. Aluminum, another metal issue. We're exposed to more aluminum than we realize, and that can affect brain health as well. And of course, you've heard about lead in the water. All of that is very damaging to the brain. But some of the other things are sugar, trans fats, artificial sweeteners, processed foods, toxic household cleaners. All those things get absorbed into your body. And then another one is limiting drugs. Drugs are hard on the brain. In fact, in this book here, Psychiatric Drug Withdrawal, fascinating book. This is by Dr. Peter Breggin, and it's really a treatise on brain health. He goes through all the different medications for brain health, and one of the things he says in here that I found fascinating, he says all psychotropic medications cause chronic brain injury. So this is why we want to do everything we can to keep our brain healthy and as naturally as we can.
So how can we then detox our bodies and our brains, because we've all been exposed to these things?
Yeah,
and it's a scary thought.
Yeah. And so, well, some of the simplest ways to drink more water. Water is a wonderful way to flush. Have more fiber. We all get about 5 grams of fiber a day. We need about 15, and that will help pull toxins out of your body. Sweat more. Infrared saunas, by the way, are great. So that helps. Fasting will detox your body. You can do different kinds of fasts. They don't have to be totally without food. You can do a juice fast and things like that. Again, we mentioned that alpha-lipoic acid is very good at detoxifying brain and liver. And we have a supplement we call the Daily Detox, which helps boost glutathione in the brain, which is very powerful to detox the body and the brain.
So what about, we talked a little bit about before, learning something new, how that can help your brain. Does it help when it comes to toxins as well?
Well, it helps your brain health. It wouldn't directly deal with toxins, but learning something new stimulates your brain. So I like what Tony Robbins said, CANI, constant and never-ending improvement. Because really, we're never sitting still. We're either in learning and growing, or we're dulling down. So always learning something new is good. So further education, new hobbies, do something completely different has been very good to help keep an aging brain young. Do something completely different. Something you always maybe wanted to do but never took the time, and it stimulates your brain in many ways. Music is very helpful for the brain. Learn a new instrument, but here's one that helps it helps your brain get healthier. Have smarter friends. It really shows that when you have people, you hang around people who are really smart, it helps you stimulate your brain and do better.
Well, I'm being helped already, Dr. Pat, just by spending time in your company.
Thank you.
And it sounds like also it's a great way to cross off your bucket list too, trying something new, things you've always wanted to do. I'm sure new experiences as well, like if you wanted to go skydiving or think of all the sensory input.
You'll find how long you can scream if you go skydiving.
That's right. There's so much you can do for your brain health. Stay tuned. We have more on that right after this. Welcome back to Maximize Living with Dr. Patrick Andersen. We're talking about brain health. What about exercise? It seems like exercise helps us with just about everything.
You know, when we think of brain health, we think of maybe doing crossword puzzles or reading, but exercise is 5 to 6 times more powerful. Body movement stimulates the brain. In the book Spark, right here, John Rady, MD, from Harvard, says that you have 50% less Alzheimer's disease if you do cardio 3 times a week. That's powerful. Here we want to find a cure. Let's do our best to prevent. He also says that cardio 3 times a week equally matches pharmaceuticals for depression in almost every single study. That exercise equals or outperforms antidepressants.
Wow.
So brain health comes naturally if you do these things right. And what's also interesting with exercise is our group Maximize Living has put out a video called Max T3. This is there are 12 12-minute workouts in here. Now, the good news is they're short.
Yeah,
The
12
bad news is
minutes.
they're hard. You go to failure. Failure is the best way to exercise. So obviously you want to do exercises that you aren't going to get hurt when you're failing.
Right.
You just can't perform another push-up, for example. And then when you work out like that, it's the best for your bone density, your cardiovascular health, your fat burning, and your brain. There's actually a hormone release called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. And this is important because when you boost your BDNF, you actually cause stem cells to turn into brain cells at a higher rate, and you cause your brain to synapse faster. So for 4 or 5 hours afterwards, you learn faster. How's that for a tip for students that are studying?
Yeah.
Get some exercise, your brain will learn faster.
Exercise is so powerful, and now it can make you smarter. So what are some exercises we can do then for brain
Well,
health?
one we got right here is balance.
Yes.
Go ahead and
we've
stand
got
up.
this
These are
here.
balance pads.
Kind of a
And
black
what we do is stand
oval.
on these with one leg and see how well you can balance. So it's pretty challenging.
Let's see
These
who
are
can go
the
the
most
longest,
difficult
Dr.
ones.
Pat.
Yeah, you're going to beat me, I think.
I'm doing
Tracy.
all right.
You're doing well.
It's a good thing I changed
So
to plastic.
that's a balance pad, and it really trains the cerebellum for balance. Then the next thing we can do is something we call a cross-crawl mechanism exercise, where you raise your opposite arm and leg. The hard part to remember which is opposite. So raise your opposite arm and leg in a marching position, or if you're on the floor. And now turn your head to the side your arm goes to.
Oh, we're going to get progressive here, huh?
Now turn your tongue away from your arm. If you can figure that one out, you got it pretty good. So the idea is the more complex the movements you develop, that the more your brain is learning, and it's so much more powerful than like crossword puzzles or being interested in something. Get your body moving, stimulates your health in your brain.
And fun too, especially if you make it a competition like we do, right, Dr.
Yeah, I think I lost.
That's why I mentioned it. So what else can we do?
Well, you can do things called figure eights. So you take your hand and make an 8 from it.
Okay. Oh, I can do this all day long, Dr. Pat.
Well, let's do 2 of them. Oh, by the way, let's do them in opposite directions. So anyway, any movement like this is really good for skill sets in your body. So exercise like that. You can also do any crossing movements where you touch the opposite knee, any crossover movements, touch the opposite heel. Things like that will stimulate your brain to learn faster. So a lot of people have issues with cross-crawling. They didn't crawl right as a child. So the brain doesn't develop right. So in some instances, a person's actually taken back to crawling to redevelop their brain.
Wow.
And it helps their coordination and balance and mentation.
So it all starts there as a baby crawling
It all
around?
starts in the brain, and all starts as a baby.
Wow. Anything else we can do?
No.
All right, well, we had lots of great information today, and don't forget, I won that little competition. But stay with us, we have more on brain health right after this.